At the end of The Lord of the Rings, there is a section called the Scouring of the Shire, where after Frodo has managed to throw the One Ring into the fires of Mount Doom, he expects to return home with his fellow hobbits to the Shire for a life of peace and relaxation, only to discover that his hometown has been taken over by the forces of evil. Well, I had a similar experience today when I checked out Devil Blade, because for the past few weeks, I've been battling the forces of Mordor of modern game design and talking about Stellar Blade and talking about all the issues with modern game design and the virtues of arcade game design, only to come home to discover an interesting surprise. And that surprise is that apparently Devil Blade has this terms of service type of thing where once you launch it, it brings up this screen and says, hey, if you want to stream this game, you need to stream this game in the special streaming mode because there's certain content in the game that we don't want streamed. This content is restricted, and if you show it, what do you think is going to happen? And I know the shmup fan base well enough now that most shmup players, because we are battered and rarely get any new exciting releases, are going to just accept this and say, okay, sure, I'll turn on streaming mode and just kind of move on from there. Oh, this is what the developer wants. I'll go ahead and do what the developer wants. The developer is Japanese, and so this is how Japanese video game companies do things, apparently. But wouldn't it be a bit hypocritical on my part, having done all this game critique, having spent all this time talking about the issues with modern gaming, to then come back to my home genre and see something like this and be like, no, it's fine. Yeah, totally. Sure. I don't see any issues here. This isn't going to set any kind of really ugly precedent in the future, I don't think. No, this is totally fine, and I think more shmups should do something like this. No, I don't think so. And the problem is that I really want to like this game. This game is putting me in an unnecessary emotional conflict that I do not want to feel. All I want is to fire up Devil Blade and tell you about how awesome the gameplay is and the design and how awesome shmups are and how you need to play shmups. That's what I want to do. But unfortunately, it seems that shmups just cannot have a win. It feels like whenever the genre gets some momentum and seems to be moving forward with good ideas, there's always some dumb bull like this. And so here we are. I've got to talk about this decision with Devil Blade. I don't really want to, but like I said, it would feel really weird and hypocritical of me to look over this, where if it appeared in any other genre, in any other game, imagine I review Tekken 8, and Tekken 8 is like, yeah, there's certain you can't stream. We don't want you to stream the gallery. We don't want you to stream the jukebox and the music. You don't think people would have a problem with that? You don't think the fighting game community would be like, what the f***, Namco? This is some So I know most shmup players are going to overlook this and just move on with their day because it doesn't matter. And the thing about it that's really frustrating is that it doesn't matter. That is what drives me up the wall. This is completely unnecessary, but it is the type of thing I noticed among shmup developers that is starting to happen, where shmups are having this sort of big man syndrome developing, where because our genre is really niche and no one cares about it, maybe developers feel this insecurity, and so they need to beef up the importance of their games through some arbitrary authoritarianism that doesn't matter anyway, because let's be real, no one gives about Devil Blade's story. No one cares about what the ending of this game is. This is not the ending of The Sixth Sense where you get to the end, you're like, oh, holy shit, I didn't see that come. Most people don't even care. I'll skip through it even without the stupid streaming rule. I would not care about what the ending of this game is. And then the gallery is like a throwaway extra feature barely anyone uses. I don't know if there's like nudes in there or something. Like, what's so awesome in the gallery that you can't show on stream? Same thing with the music. The music sounds cool and everything, and it has a rockin' soundtrack, but what does this policy even mean in terms of the music? So can I not play the music on stream? If I was doing the greatest shmup soundtracks, I wouldn't be able to feature this game's soundtrack in the discussion because I can't play the music on stream unaccompanied by sound effects. So what is happening here? This whole thing is so stupid. But as a game critic, I have to comment on it And of course, it's like way more of an interesting, weird decision to do than to just make a shmup. And so even if I try to do like a normal review of the game, a good percentage of the review is going to be me talking about this issue. And of course, this is the only thing that's going to stand out to people who aren't shmup players anyway. So let's go over the reasons why I have such an issue with this decision in the first place. Number one, it is unnecessarily aggressive to a small supportive fan base to begin with. Shmup fans are really cool, and shmup fans are a very generous, chill fan base. To treat us right away, right out of the gate like a bunch of dirty thieves, it just gives a bad taste. It's just a bad look. This is not the biggest blockbuster release. This isn't a release people are just dying to pirate the soundtrack from or to rip images from the gallery, or if they see the ending in a run, they're like, nah, I'm not buying this. Forget it. They spoiled the entire end. I'm not buying this. And I get that maybe what the developer wants is this sort of nice, pristine experience for everyone where everyone playing the game for the first time is going to have their mind blown by the twist ending. I get that could be a preference of the developer, but to take it to this level, to take it this far as to imply that you're going to copyright strike someone's channel in order to get this effect, that's a little much. There are just a lot of really ugly things that could happen that are completely unnecessary and make your game more of a liability than a credit. What's the point? What are you accomplishing other than to make your game look bad? There is no scenario this decision benefits the game. Just in a pure marketing sense, this is going backwards because you're pissing off a lot of people and achieving nothing. And so this is my first problem with this. There isn't even a sort of Machiavellian, get the money, get the fame sort of outcome to this strategy. It's just dumb. There's nothing good that's going to happen. It only will create bad. So that's number one. Number two, it sets this really ugly precedent where even if it is successful, the outcomes are going to be nasty to the genre. Imagine this becomes a thing in shmups now where all the shmups coming out are like, you know what? There are certain sections of the game I don't want you to be able to stream. No, there's certain sections of the game that I don't want you to show. You can't show the story. And you know what? While you're at it, you can't show the TLB because the TLB is a secret. And so I don't want people to discover that unless they discover that on their own in the gameplay. And you know what? I also don't like this style of scoring. I don't want you to show that. I mean, it just opens the gate for all kinds of dumb, arbitrary decision making. And you could say, oh, well, in the case of Devil Blade, it's just a few of these things, but this is how these trends always start. But then look where it always ends up. Not somewhere good, I'll tell you that much, especially in the genre of shmups where we already have all this weird copyright stuff happening and secrecy, and shmups already are really copyright intensive. We don't need to take that next step and have it affect stuff that is released on Steam in the Western market. And I know a lot of people will defend it and say, well, this is just how Japanese developers are. This is just how Japanese copyright is. Sure, if this game was released just in Japan, sure, do whatever. Do your extremely strict Japanese copyright stuff, but keep that in the Japanese releases. If you release a product in the Western market, if you released a product to me, an American, I am going to hold it up to American standards. Developers can have it both ways. They can't sell products to a more open Western market, but then bring in their strict Japanese copyright law views. If you want to sell to a Western market, you got to play by Western standards. That's my opinion. I mean, just look at what has happened to anime content on YouTube because of this strict Japanese copyright policy. It has become a hellscape, and I do not want that to happen with video games, especially shmups. And so that is reason number two. It is an ugly standard if we allow it to continue. And now reason number three, which is simply that it damages the relationship between the player and the game outside of this whole streaming restricted content stuff, where now as a player, this is why it'd be really hard for me to review the game right now. I see the game with a totally different set of eyes and a higher level of skepticism because the game isn't giving me any grace. The game isn't giving me any benefit of the doubt that I won't pirate the music or whatever they're worried I'm doing. So now, you know what? I don't feel like I need to give this game any benefit of the doubt, where before, I'm watching the gameplay, I'm watching the footage, I'm watching the boss fights, I'm like, yeah, there's some really cool, promising ideas here. I really like what it's going for. It seems really solid. Now I'm watching the game, I'm like,
What are you looking at?
Oh, nothing. It's just that I, like your shirt.
You would.
Because I'm so bothered by the way the game is treating me as a player. And yes, I know there are going to be players out there who are completely ambivalent about this. They could care less. They don't care. They don't stream anyway. They don't plan to stream. They think streaming is lame and YouTubing is lame and all these other things. And maybe there's even people out there in their own way that agree with like, yeah, I'm sick of these streamers spoiling the end of the game. Yes, I know that demographic of players out there and more power to you and everything, but I am not part of that demographic. And so if you are the type of player who's going to be bothered by this type of treatment from the developer, and there are going to be players like that, I've already talked to plenty of them, it's again creating this unnecessary problem with your game that doesn't need to be there. Like, am I likely to recommend this game? Even though I can see with my own eyes that it does seem to have really solid gameplay and scoring and graphics and all that, you know, it makes it more complicated at least. I'm not saying I wouldn't recommend it, but it definitely brings some asterisks and caveats that don't need to even be there in the first place. And that brings us to the final point of today's video, which is, as a fan of the genre overall, outside of just Devil Blade itself, I think this approach to copyright and this approach to interacting with your fan base is completely the wrong direction, as in it is going backwards from where the genre should be going. Because if you take a step back and think about, what is the most popular shmup? What is the shmup that has managed to escape not only this niche fan base, but has become a global, worldwide phenomenon where now people recognize the IP and don't even play shmups themselves? Of course, I am talking about Touhou. I think Touhou has the right idea. Devil Blade has the wrong idea in terms of health of the genre. I think shmups should become less aggressive about copyright. They should become more open source, more open license, whatever you'd want to call it. Become more friendly and accessible and more participatory with their fan base, because shmups have a very passionate fan base. Shmups have a fan base where the people want to go out and share the games widely and do cool projects with them. And if you are making your game really restricted and really kind of ambiguous and gray with the copyright status of it, in terms of sharing it, in terms of playing it on stream, in terms of just the general attitude, that is taking a niche genre and just making it more niche. It is reinforcing this false sense of grandeur that isn't there in the first place. Because if you had a really powerful, popular IP like Nintendo does with like Mario and Zelda, and the way Square does with the Final Fantasy series, sure, as a company, I don't think it's great, but you can get away with this really authoritarian, nasty treatment of copyright of your properties because they are actually extremely lucrative, and the Nintendo fan base are cult-like in their willingness to withstand punishment from the developer. Nintendo has that cachet. They can be like Disney. I don't like it, but they can get away with being tyrants because of their power. Shmups, on the other hand,
No.
we are not popular. We are not powerful. We can't wave around our fists, because if it comes down to making playing these games a bother or a trouble or a liability, people just aren't going to play the games. You got to know your place a little bit. We better become missionaries. We better become obnoxious in our willingness to knock on people's doors and tell them about how great the genre is. And so adding in this nasty copyright barrier to the genre and to your game is just the wrong direction, in my opinion. And so these are my thoughts on the current situation with Devil Blade. What I'm holding out hope for is that the developer comes to their senses and realizes this is not probably a good idea for the target audience and doesn't really accomplish anything anyway, and drops this whole copyright streaming thing. That's my hope. And then after that point, I can come back to Devil Blade with a fresh slate. But up until then, this decision with the restricted streaming mode stuff, it just turns me off and makes me uninterested in covering the game and talking about it. If you don't agree with me, that's fine. If this thing doesn't really bother you that much, that's fine. If you don't stream, you know, I get it and all that stuff, but this is how I feel, and I feel like I got to be honest about that. So And so thanks so much for tuning in to this kind of impromptu video. If you enjoy the channel, please like, subscribe, tell all your friends. Adios, everyone. So thank you to the $5 patrons, 100, Absconditis, Accepting Panda, Admiral Coconut, Anhold, AJA, Alexander Pfeiffer, Anthony A, Arcade Hell, Arrow Viper, Owleye, Autonamed, B-Lit, Beam Pit, Bo, Beetle Dames, Boghog, Board Basmati, Borgie22, Chase Palumbo, Chris Yusufovich, Christopher R, Chronic Burnout 3, Clara Cliff, Clay Binkley, Climby Coyote, Coast, Colorboy, Cooksan666, Cook Some Soup, Des Audio, Dances with Incels, Darren Griffin, Dave Hansen, David Crespo, Delta Tango 6, Dick Jones, Dingo, DJ420 Praise It, Drano, Dr. Bosky, Elias Alonso, Eric Houdini, Fabra, FCK, F Deluxe, Friskin, Florida Sucks, Frames Per Human, Francisco, Full Set, Game Boy Guru, Geese Machine, GPM, Gustavo Sanchez, Hausu, Hero Death, Kiki Hime, HUD, Jake Ryan, Jacob Valenzuela, JLab, JB RPG, Jink Hans, John Kelly, John Longwalker, Josh Mayer, K, K2, Contain, Craze the Boys, Mieshma, Malaise, Mario Simic, Mars Bar, Matt O'Leary, Maz, Megadeth 859, Minung, Meister, Mewgem, Milo Shamel, Misha, Munro, Nathaniel Davis, Neon Dagger Games, Neela Agitis, Okla Kugels, Ospe, Pedro Perez, Poorly Written Protagonist, Psycho Blizzard, Queen Charlene, Ralph Tuhilo, Raul, Rapido, Real Skeen, Ren Halt's Time, Retro Schmupper, Rory Starks, Rolf015, Ryan Bartlett, Scanline City, Segfault, Shazzy, Shmup Junkie, Sirapong, Sky2K, Spiders STG, Steady AI, Steve Fiction, Street Magic, Superfunk, Temzarian, Taze Ryu, The Boot Rex, The Dirty Screech, The N1, The Old Bensta, Touhou Rosardi, Travis Arbon, Sugumo, 2IU, Twilight EX, Unikoi Roots, Ursua, Ushi Mushi, Vic Viper, Beautiful, Wabby Legs, What Is This, Zachary Patton, and Zeal.